So relief in recreation, pandemic effects on recreation in Santa Fe National Forest and beyond. So let's see here. First of all, I just want to say this is a picture I took last year, and it was absolutely gorgeous. These are some of those amazing moments that you have, while being out there. And there's a lot of challenges, but there was also these moments. So I just wanted to share that with you all. Okay, so let's talk statistics of outdoor recreation in the U.S. during the pandemic. And these numbers are still coming out. So what I'll show you is more like for 2020. How did people recreate? What trends did we see in the beginning and throughout? The good, the bad, and the trashy. And then what can each of us do to help? And then, questions and your own stories. So in case you're wondering where we are at, this is the Truchas Peaks in the Pecos Wilderness. And so we'll keep going here. I thought this was interesting. A new group of U.S. outdoor recreationists, 20%, have emerged during the pandemic. So typically younger, higher income, Anglo, and predominantly women. And nearly half of all Americans participated in, or at least on one day a month. Sorry, there's a typo. During the pandemic. The other interesting thing was that 13% of respondents. This was the Leave No Trace. The organization Leave No Trace took this data and put it into a nice article. They stopped outdoor recreation. It was predominantly non-Anglo, lower income, and live in or more urban areas. So, you just consider maybe what resources people had and the stresses they were experiencing during the pandemic. Could they go out, or did they need to, did they not have that opportunity? I thought it interesting that hiking shoe sales rose significantly, driven by the 4.8 million new hikers in 2020. Electric bikes, 135% growth, and making the segment bigger than the road bikes at $660 million. So that's pretty impressive. And there was an uptick in camping, dollar sales of camping equipment, 31% in June of 2020. And again, there will be more data that comes out. This is just what I could find. But as we get through this and find some more data, then this will be interesting to see what overall the pandemic has, what it's brought us and the challenges, definitely. And then camping equipment sales reached $605 million in June 2020. I do remember going to REI in summer 2020, just trying to get some fuel for work, for a backpacking trip for work, and they didn't know when they would get any more in. It was off the shelves. The shelves were almost empty, so it was a big deal, which is exciting. People were getting out there, viewing nature. Dollar sales of binoculars, if you think about that, 22% increase, and then 16 million in June 2020. And then even paddle sports took off, 50%, 56%, $172 million in June 2020. So obviously this is coming up to 2 years later, so it'd be interesting to see the larger picture. So why? Time, obviously we had a lot of time on our hands. Many people had a lot of time on their hands. New pursuits, if you have time on your hands, or you maybe have your schedule has changed and maybe you have a little extra money, then maybe you can take advantage of. Maybe there's a bucket list item that you have that you always wanted to pursue for outdoors. Cooped up, restricted movement, definitely. Proximity to people, money to spend, like I said. So those are some of the reasons, and I'm sure there were more reasons. So the good, the bad, and the trashy. The good. So I don't know if anybody's seen Nomadland. It's a pretty good movie. That's people that live in their vans, drive around, meet up with each other all over the country. Maybe they have side jobs. This is a great movie. It just makes me think about all the RVs and cruiser vans or whatever they are that people really started purchasing and getting out there and doing things. So people spent time in nature. They were trapped inside, so they took advantage and got out into nature. New experiences, new hobbies, introducing kids and others to camping, hiking, all of these different things, OHBing, and again, bucket list items. So those are the good things. And, we did see that people were out and we talked to people, and this this was their first time camping, or this was their first time, hiking or mountain biking or whatever. And so that was really exciting to see that. And it just, yeah, it was nice to talk to people. And so then overcrowded, the bad is the overcrowded developed recreation sites, trash bins overflowing, high use of restrooms when they were open. There are stories that we had to close restrooms. We weren't really sure. The PPE was a big thing, and so we wanted to keep our employees safe and also the public safe. And so we did close restrooms for a time there. I did come upon a couple restrooms. One, they had taken a hacksaw and sawed through the deadbolt to get into the bathroom. So that wasn't great. And then, there's those vents, those grates on the doors. And so they tried to take one off so they could come in through the grate and use the bathroom. So it's, and if they didn't, then there were white flowers all over the place, which is toilet paper if you're not familiar with that. So that was interesting. And OSB usage, very busy roads and non-roaded areas. That has really taken off and still going strong. Especially the brand, the razors, they have the roll bars, etc. So and the wider wheelbase. And so, and I've been in one on a fire, and it was fun. I can see, but it's also really easy to get places and cause some destruction. And so, yeah, that's something we're still dealing with. Dispersed camping areas littered with trash and used for dispersed camping. So resource damage. So there's, places that maybe were used for dispersed camping, and then there wasn't any space there. So what do? You move to another area and trample the vegetation, etc. So abandoned campfires, that's a normal thing every year, but then there were more that we definitely noticed. And broken, vandalized gates, taking hacksaws through those, just removing the gate. Or I think one entrance, they were building a ramp with a bobcat so they could get over. I'm not sure that ever actually came to fruition, but this is the stories you hear on the radio when you're doing patrols. Overcrowded parking at trailheads and high use on trails. We did take some data from the Aspen Basin, our wilderness information specialist. He did take data. Hundreds of people would come out on the weekends to hike that trail, if you know where that is, at Ski Santa Fe, with many different levels of experience, anywhere from backpackers to people with flip-flops on. So yeah, it's quite the variety. And then access for rivers like the Rio Chama, that was definitely crowded, the put in and the takeout, the day use areas. So with that, there's the trashy too. Let's see here if I can remember where these are. The top picture, I believe, is in Dalton Canyon. This bottom left is a makeshift toilet. And then this picture here with the big dumpster, that's actually on the Pisgah National Forest. Our coworker, Sydney Snyder, she worked there, and this was just one weekend of all the trash that had been collected and put there. So, and part of the challenge is that when there's so much trash, a lot of times when we put it into dumpsters, just to make room, we will get in there and we will stomp around on the trash. So that was obviously a challenge with this, but so definitely the trashy. Here's some more, just abandoned campfires and random things. You never know what you'll find at campsites, and sometimes they're good finds because people just leave behind their camping equipment, but other times it's not the greatest combination of items. So, but take a deep breath. I love this picture. It makes me smile. But so quit talking and begin doing. So we did have some work days. These folks are picking up, I think the top one is from a New Mexico Volunteers for the Outdoors project. And then these other folks, I'm not sure where they are, but they sure do look happy, picking up trash. And so Stewardship in Action, this is more from the New Mexico Volunteers for the Outdoors. Trout Unlimited also came out. but I know a lot of other groups. UPWA has been out there. I could just keep going. So lots of effort has been made over the past couple of years. So how can I help? Develop recreation. We have our biggest areas is the Jemez Recreation Area, Pecos Canyon, Gallinas Canyon, and then of course the Ski Santa Fe. So pick up trash as a family and as an individual, 1 time, 3 times, etc. Work with local Forest Service rep to plan a trash bash day. Adopt a facility is something else that I'm learning more about, and it's a great idea. And that could be a campground, that could be a developed recreation, like a day use area that maybe doesn't have a host, but needs some TLC, some love on the weekends. Let's see here, what else? Disperse recreation, clean up trash at trailheads and along trails, become a trailhead steward, provide education, leave no trace, and pick up trash, and adopt a trail and maintain it. So, and of course, reporting the vandalism to the local Forest Service office. You know, we can't all do it by ourselves, but together we can pretty much, you know, we can make it happen. We can do it all together. So, and then of course, sign up on a volunteer agreement. So, and keep track of your hours so that we know what sort of force is out there that's helping to keep the forest clean and to educate folks. Let's see here. Anything else? Yes. Just a reminder when you're out, remember the 7 principles of leave no trace. LNT.org. It's a great website. You know, some of the biggest things are disposing of waste properly, obviously garbage, but also human waste. So leave what you find, minimize campfire impacts. But I put this up here, this Pact. This is a new startup company, and I'm not necessarily promoting that you purchase this. It's just an example of something that people are getting creative. This was last year that they started this. And so it's Mycelium. The little brown tablets are, you actually put them in the cat hole and they break up the waste a lot faster. The white little pieces are toilet paper that you add a couple drops to and it expands. So, and of course you have your hand sanitizer. So it is on people's radar, and definitely with the amount of waste and that's out there and the increased recreation, we have to consider these things and how we can be responsible. So this was mostly designed for newer folks that are maybe newer to it and they're not quite sure how to go about digging a cat hole, etc. But yeah, I thought that's a pretty cool invention. Let's see here. And then of course, how to completely extinguish a campfire. This was something that, you know, was brought up when we would go around doing patrols. We'd hear on the radio about, oh, you know, there's another abandoned campfire. And that's always going to happen every year. But when new folks come in, maybe they don't know how to put out a campfire that they even should, or is it totally out? So you can see this is a great poster. I would love to be able to put these up around the developed recreation areas. So even doing things like that, just leave no trace activities and posting things like this around can really use help. You know, it takes a lot of people to keep it beautiful and to help people have a successful experience, but also respect the woods, respect the forest and everything. So yes, So anyway, the last slide was thank you. Sorry. And I wonder if anybody has any questions. That was pretty quick, but or any stories. I'd love to hear more how they were and how you dealt with them.
Yeah, okay, so
this is Leela McFerrin with UPWA, and in May of 20, we are completing 10 years now of a contract with the Pecos Ranger District to clean up the Dalton day use area every week. as soon as the gate opens, and then we stop when the gate closes. We actually stay on a little longer than that. But the other thing that happened in 2020 when you closed the bathrooms was that Upwood took it upon itself to rent 10 porta potties and put them out at the high use campsites and dispersed areas. So it was really tough on us, but it was tougher on the poor businesses and Pecos who were just inundated with people coming in just to use their bathroom. It was rather sickening. So I just want to hope the next time this happens, if it does, knock on wood, that you guys don't close the bathrooms. That's all I wanted to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Layla.
So I have a follow-up question to that, and this is Kristen. Is there so there was obviously a departmental or organization-wide decision to do that, to close the facilities. And has there been any discussion on how, if something like this does happen, some things that you would change or do differently as far as allowing public access?
Well, I think we learned a lot in the first number of months, and we delayed opening even campgrounds until June. But we have more knowledge now, and we know about PPE and how to keep ourselves safe, and everything else that's been developed, like vaccines, etc. So I think we learned a lot from this, and it's not something we wanted to do, and we knew that there would be repercussions, and for businesses, for the landscape, etc. So we definitely did learn a number of things, and I hope we don't have to go through this again, but all the support we got, and renting restrooms is, I know they've done that at other places as well, with dispersed camping where there's not enough restrooms and folks are out there. So you have to get creative, but hopefully we don't have to do that again. Close
Yeah,
restrooms.
certainly. So we do have a question in the chat from Joe. I think it's Joe. Sorry if it's not. Your name's cut off. Do you appreciate or anticipate more and longer term / permanent restrictions on dispersed recreation for resource protection reasons, particularly in riparian areas?
Let's see. Let me see that again. Is it in the chat?
Let me give you.
So do we anticipate putting more regulations on riparian areas where people are dispersed camping? Is that the question, basically?
Yeah, here, let me put it back in the chat so you can see it.
I'm not Zoom savvy.
No, you're good. Everyone. Okay, so there's a new question coming in, which you're seeing right now. Okay, give us 1 second, Mickey, please.
So,
okay. Jennifer, you should be able to see it now.
Okay. I think, all right. I don't see it, but I think I understand that. What sort of evaluation will we do when it comes to riparian areas? And it's a case by case, space by space. There's places definitely where we need to look at the usage and how it's impacting the land, and I know we do that. I'm also thinking of other areas like, and I wanted to mention this too, the Caja del Rio, the headquarters well trailhead. That's another place where dispersed camping has really taken off. And the challenge is like, well, do you just put up a bunch of boulders and you put up a bunch of signs, and so it really has to be an effort that an education has to go into that as well. So, I think it's just as things evolve, we'll figure that out. And, with that's an opportunity at the headquarters well to actually designate dispersed camping. That's kind of a strange way to put it, but that this is showing us maybe where we need to focus more of our efforts.
Yeah,
And-
just to follow up really quick.
Yes.
I was just wondering whether things are going to basically still be handled kind of at a local case by case kind of level, or do you anticipate some more like policy level kind
Mhm.
of changes on that, as like for the forest or for the region or for the system as a whole?
I think it's more case by case, forest by forest, and what the forest management plan has, and what communities, how we can work with communities to protect these resources. Maybe that's not the best answer. I'm just a district person, but yeah, we definitely have seen it there. I was on the Gunnison last year. They have 6 very large drainages up by Crested Butte, and as a community, as a county, they took it upon themselves maybe 5 or 6 years ago to say, hey, we need to reel this in and start designating sites and areas, and to keep people away from those riparian areas. So it is not a fast process, but definitely it's something on our minds, because it's either designated as dispersed and then you tell people not to camp, but there has to be some direction with that. And that's part of travel management too, is to keep people closer to the roads and not to go everywhere. But it's kind of a beast. And yeah, so any support and help and that we can get, that's greatly appreciated, and really appreciate feedback too.
Great. Awesome. Joe, thank you for clarifying and unmuting yourself as well. And we have Mickey in the chat asking to add to the discussion regarding Rio and Medio. So Mickey, if you want to mute yourself, or.
Yes, so this is Mickey Fong with Rio and Medio. Do you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay. So Jennifer, I don't know if you were involved in the Rio and Medio, the high visitation impact that we saw during COVID, and then we had the wildfire out there, and then that even added to the mix as far as access on that 1-lane road, that goes to the trailhead. And then subsequently that trailhead was closed, and we have these temporary barriers. And so I believe that area is still under restoration work, but the village, since I live there, and I represent the village in this discussion, is that we as the village are just wondering if there is still work in progress as far as mitigating that issue of that trailhead, as far as how many vehicles are parked back there. It's kind of like at a standstill, and we haven't really heard any further information of that progressing into, is that trailhead still going to be located there, or is it going to be located someplace else? And because right now, with temperatures warming up, spring break, we're starting to see hikers now still coming into that area. So we just kind of want to mitigate that, like what was occurring before when people were moving barriers to park, So I don't know if you can, help us with that, of who to contact, and just trying to, have some communication with the village of the status.
Okay, excellent question. Thanks, Mickey. Nice to hear your voice. Yeah, that's a $10,000 question or $1 million question. I know there's a lot of stress around that trailhead. I definitely know, and I don't want to pick on. I'm going to mention Lynn, because she might have more idea. But the other person definitely is our new district ranger, Sandy Imler Jaquez. She is probably a good person to talk to. And I know it's on her radar. But Lynn is on camera. So do you have anything to add, Lynn?
Hey, sure. So Mickey, actually, the whole area still is under a closure order, and that hasn't been lifted yet. People may not totally realize that, and there's a team that's going in to evaluate and see if that closure area can be lifted and be adjusted. And so the parking lot area is kind of been on hold as far as like just, it's not been on the radar because of that closure. But like you say, that's not totally solved, and that will come back on the agenda to continue working with the community. We've got new folks, new players, a new ranger. So so stay tuned, and let's keep that communication going and see where we can go with it. Does that help?
Oh, yes, it does, because there was that kind of reshuffling of the players, over all this time. And that was, at least for me, yeah, I lost contact with who was doing what, and, if information was conveyed, yeah. So it's just that we just wanted to say, hey, yeah, we haven't forgotten, and that, we just wanted to know as far as if there is any progress, or if not, or, just that, wondering if that closure was still on that parking lot, and will it stay closed this summer, that sort of thing. Because it's really hard on the residents that live at that end, where they're like, I hate to say it, like parking Nazis, it's like trying to turn people around, and it's kind of like the bad of, the ugly of visitation, which is really quite a bummer, because we do want people to enjoy the outdoors. But then on the other hand, it can get a little too much sometimes, yeah, for that space.
Yeah, we've seen the damage and the concern, and it's certainly a concern that we need to work through. So thanks for that.
Okay, well, great. And it's good to hear everyone's voice instead of on the email.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you.
Lynn, will you just go ahead and introduce yourself, just for those that don't know you?
Sure. I'm Lynn Bjorklund, and I am the recreation team lead for Española Coyote, and I work with Jennifer. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to everybody for your cooperation and good sportsmanship, maybe is the way to put it, during the pandemic, when we were all isolated and couldn't go anywhere, do anything. The outdoors, and then this is an outdoor community. Everybody just loves the trails. I think probably everybody on this call is probably a trail user of some type, and just loves to get out there. I know when I was out there myself on trails that I rarely see anyone, there was just like all kinds of people, and it was amazing. And people were very courteous. They just played together well, and the Salamos folks were wonderful. We don't have quite the number of users and the traffic and the volume as we do in the Santa Fe, but even there, where our first instructions when the pandemic came was, okay, well, we don't want to even open up anything until we know what we're doing, and how do we keep our employees safe. That was kind of number one. So we were slow to open, and then we had signs like the bathrooms were not open at first, and there was big X's over the trash cans and asking people to pack it out. And for the most part, people did that. And, we were worried about like human waste behind the bathrooms and the toilets. And for the most part, that didn't happen. I'd say for the most part on the Santa Fe, at least on our districts, people were just very good, helping us out through it, very understanding, very patient. And so I just want to really put out a really big thanks to everybody for that kind of cooperation. And no one has been through anything like this before. And so we learned how to use Zoom and Microsoft Teams, and it's in a lot of ways changed how we do business forever. And so it's been quite a ride, quite an experience, and we've all been stepping forward together in amazing cooperation through all this. So just again, huge thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lynn. And we do have a question in the chat about the Mycelium tablets. Can you tell us more about that?
Let's see. So it's they did. I won't go too much into human waste, but it's supposed to break it down faster. And within, I don't know, a few weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, it's a lot faster than it would if you didn't put those tablets in there. That's about all I can tell you. They gave me a pretty good presentation on it. I was pretty excited and impressed. I think if you want more information, I could get you guys the contact, the people that actually started the business. They actually started as out of Western Colorado. It's one of those startup, like a incubation lab for new businesses. So yeah, I could get some contact information for you, but I'm not an expert on that, but I think it's a great idea. Yeah, to look into that more.
And it's called Pact, right?
Pact, yes, PACT, and I can't remember what it stands for. I think those are $40 to $50 for that whole kit. And then you can buy the refills for the toilet paper, and I think you can even buy the shovel because it's really lightweight and supposed to be really easy to use and it doesn't break. So they put a lot of thought into it, but maybe more things like that will come out.
Perfect. Awesome. And I did have a follow-up question about all of this, which is, I know that I've heard nationwide, I think a lot of us have, about like just these crazy numbers of people. And I know in the beginning you shared a bit about like the percentages and recreation as far as like buying items and things like that. But do you know an overall approximation of how many people visited Santa Fe National Forest in the last 2 years?
I would have to get back to you on that.
I figured. I thought I'd ask though.
It was a lot. Obviously, it was a lot more. It was pretty crazy, pretty exciting, but there was some challenges, definitely. So good question. I don't know. I'm not afraid to say I don't know.
Just awesome.
Yes.
Great. Perfect.
Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say also one thing I wanted to point out too, and so much money was spent on all that outdoor gear, and the challenge was obviously for our outfitter guides that could not run their programs, could not run their backpacking trips or their Jeep tours. So those were some effects as well, but there's an uptick in that again, so they're able to operate. And, just the local businesses, that had to close, et cetera. So it was tough for everybody. So definitely appreciate all your patience, and we're getting through it.
I love that we've had some community comments, and I think that's great. So if anybody else is out there that would like to make a comment or have a question for Jennifer, you are able to unmute yourself, or you can write your question in the chat.
Who's on here? Oh, I know Courtney's from the Carson. I'll put you on the spot. If you have any stories, Courtney. Courtney works on the trail crew. She works in wilderness, etc. So you might have stories, but I know there's a lot of them out there. I was even one of our rec staff on the Jemez district. He's pretty new, but he worked in Florida and said the use of the boating community just skyrocketed, and jet skis and everything, and that was a lot to deal with. But then also, there's manatees in those waters where he was, and they really suffered a lot of injuries and deaths of manatees. So it just trickles and spirals, and it's a waterfall or snowball, whatever you want to call it.
Right, definitely. I really appreciate that you put in a little bit about leave no trace, because even the most skilled and expert hikers and backpackers still need a little bit of a reminder sometimes. So that's good.
Mhm, definitely, yes.
Awesome. Well, cool. So if anyone wants to unmute yourself, you can. We'll give it a minute. If you have any questions.
This is Leila McFerrin with Upwa again. The other thing that Upwood does, besides help clean up trash and keep the forest going, is we do EPA 319 grants for river for habitat reconstruction or habitat structuring, and also for flood damage, which was what happened in Dalton Canyon, where this big dispersed area over here that is just trash to the max. Well, in 2020, they just started making their own campsites, just anywhere they could find a place to pull in or just park on the road and walk down to the creek, to Dalton Creek. Or they would just move a rock and drive down to the creek and park 5 feet away from it, knowing that the emissions controls on cars, the chemicals that they use, get into the water, into the mainstream of the creek. So we did a 319 grant last year. We'll be finishing up in the next month or two, but we moved a whole lot of dangerous trees and cleaned up the creek and put in 8,000 boulders to pull the campers 75 feet back from the creek, which is the standard that you want to not pollute the water. So I just wanted to mention that, and our website is upperpecoswatershed.org. That is the main thing that we do, but currently we're working on 2 projects, one to designate 186 miles of mainstream and creeks as outstanding national resource waters under the EPA Act, and that we're having a hearing April 12th with the Water Quality Control Commission, the state. So if anybody wants to go to that website and write a letter of support for our designation as outstanding national resource waters, I'd appreciate it. But we will be finishing up Dalton dispersed area as soon as the snow's gone. And I'd love for you guys to come up and take a ride up the canyon and take a look at it. It's going to be completely different, and it's amazing already. There's a couple of historic sites up there, one of which was the original Santa Fe National Forest Ranger Station cabin, a little 600 square foot log cabin that is being maintained, which we're proud of. And another area that we're working up is up at Cowles, where the ponds are, the 3 ponds at Cowles before you get to Jack's Creek. That area we're doing another big project on next summer. We'll actually start this fall, but it'll be 2003 before we finish it. But that's the kind of work we're doing. So any support, anything you guys can help with, we're big supporters of the Santa Fe, and we work hard to maintain it. But we appreciate this meeting tonight. Thank you very much for doing it. It's everything you said about the pandemic just rings true in my head. And it was quite the experience, wasn't it?
Yes, definitely. I think that everybody learned something, right? Sounds like it.
That's right. Take care and have a good night.
You as well.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
one other question. Have you been able to, or have you tried to discuss any of these issues with some of the outdoor recreation, I'll call them like trade associations, like the Guides and Outfitters, the New Mexico group for that, and the off-highway vehicles, those kind of statewide advocacy groups, if you will? Have they seen this kind of presentation, and have they been engaged?
Not that I know of, but I know we have conversations with our outfitter guides about, they have their businesses on the forest, and they, and they go places and they do clean up trash, and they do clear trees where they can. The OHV community is something else that I would like to, and I know we'd like to get, more partnership going, more communication happening You know, we don't have a lot of OHV trails on this forest. And, you know, I know a lot of people don't want those, but at the same time, if there's not some direction and some, you know, where you should go, then, you know, people go everywhere. So, yeah, I mean, more discussions would be good. Definitely. That's a good point.
Thank you.
This is Leela one more time.
Yeah.
We are big in the OHV. We are big in the OHV area, trying to change the rules. Also, Game and Fish bought a whole bunch of signs that were going to be distributed, and I think Heyman's got 100 signs, but the Santa Fe only got 10. Jennifer, and I'm wondering why that is, and maybe if you guys can check on that. And Upwood has offered to help place those signs up in basically the one area we have, which is Davis Willow, all the way to the top of Elk Mountain. But it's getting destroyed, and it's just sad.
Mhm.
So anything anybody can help with that, go to our website, upperpickuswatershed.org, and help us out. Thanks.
Definitely. Thank you. Yeah. I don't know. I know I saw that come through, and I don't know if it came through late or, but hopefully there'll be more opportunities for that funding in the future, because we definitely need some signage and some education, you know, within the OHV community. So that, yep, good point, Leela. Thank you very much. Yeah, the money's out there. So it's any way that you guys can help us, you know, if it's writing grants, proposals, which I know you guys do, that's really helpful, or identifying those locations, and then even what do we put on those signs. You know, it takes a village, it takes an army to make this happen. So thank you.